Anyone who's ever done anything worth doing has dreamed big, failed mightily, and mostly started from humble beginnings. This is a podcast about such people. The most fascinating podcast in the world is fascinating because of the stories of the human beings. Hello, everybody. It's Pat DiCerbo, the most fascinating podcast in the world, which has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the people who agree to talk to me. And if you don't believe me, you can ask my wife. Today we have Jeff Zorn. Jeff, I describe as a lifelong friend, which isn't completely accurate, but we met when I was a freshman at Union College in 1984. And Jeff and I were both rugby players and close friends. And we have spent the last 35 years as coworkers. He's a very dear friend. We've done lots and lots of things together, some of which is not suitable for discussing on our podcast. But welcome, Jeff. It's great to see you.
Good to see you, Pat. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So as you may know, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, I start at the more or less the beginning, at least people's earliest memories. And my recollection is that you grew up on Long Island, and were you born there? I forget.
I started life in the Bronx, and there was an incident in childhood that I kind of instigated that led my family to leave the Bronx. I grew up on Long Island from age 8 onward, second grade. I have vivid memories of that incident, but not many.
What was the incident?
I remember my parents, was my stepfather, my mom and stepdad we were getting ready to go on a kind of a family outing, and we were in an apartment building on like the, 20-something floor. And I was getting restless waiting for everybody to get ready. And I said, hey, can I go out and play outside while I wait? And they said, we don't want to have to look for you. Stay close, to the front of the building. And so I went downstairs, and I remember a couple of teenagers calling me, some kind of dirty Jew or something or other like that. And I picked up, I didn't know what it was at that time, but I recognize it now from my memory. It was actually a spark plug that was on the ground, and I nailed one of them with it. I threw it and they pummeled me. And my stepdad came downstairs with 2 teenage boys on me, kicking me and kind of giving me a good beating. And he kicked one of them in the head and punched the other one, and they kind of ran off. And there was a big civil suit that these boys' parents brought against my stepfather. And that's the incident that led us to Long Island. I never told them to this day. My stepfather is dead. He died without the knowledge that I started that fight. I never told my mom, who's still with us. I don't think she'd even remember the fight. But the whole thing got thrown out of court when they saw that 2 teenagers had beaten up an 8-year-old.
Wow. This is a really interesting, anti-Semitic thing, obviously. But you once made the comment to me, until I was 15 or however old you were, I thought being a Jew was a bad thing. Do you remember saying that?
Well, I don't remember saying that. I can tell you that I grew up in an area where there weren't many Jews. And I remember one of my close friends, Harold Carlson, who was a couple of years older than me. I couldn't have been more than 11 or 12. He asked if he could feel my head, and he was looking for horns. And he always says, the Jews killed Jesus. And I'd go back to my parents and say, did the Jews kill Jesus? And they told me the Romans killed Jesus. And I don't know who killed Jesus, but I think probably both are right. If I look at my history, that the Jews, with the help of the Romans, killed Jesus.
But wrong on the horns, thank God. It's so interesting. My first person I met at Union College, I'm not going to say her name, but she was lovely sophomore. I was on campus for cross country, and I told her I was from rural Saratoga County, Galway, New York. And she said, were there any Jews in your town? And I said, yeah, there was one family. They went to church on Saturday. And she said, that's about all I knew. And she said, did they have horns on their head? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, isn't that what you think? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But you're kind of cute. Do you want to have a beer? You know. So we became friends. But I was like, I never heard that until college.
Yeah.
But so I asked you about your biological father earlier today. Can you tell me about that? Like, how old were you when your biological
Sure.
father?
So it's kind of an interesting story. My biological father and my stepfather were actually very close friends. And my mom and biological father got married very young. My mom got pregnant at 16 with my older sister. By 17, kind of shotgun wedding, they were married. My father was a 22-year-old Marine, and their marriage immediately kind of hit the skids, and I was kind of the child that was planned to save the marriage. Some 3.5, 4 years after my older sister.
It's a lot of pressure.
No, I don't remember. These are only stories I was told, so I don't even know the veracity of these stories. What I do know is that one of the stories that was told was that my mother and biological father were having problems. My biological father thought that his best friend, my stepfather, was a very good and gifted communicator, and he asked to be, him to be an intermediator to kind of help broker, some of the fights in the marriage. And a relationship developed with my stepfather, which ultimately wound up in cheating. So I was about 5 when that relationship kind of developed. I was about 7 when there was kind of a moving out where my stepfather moved in and my father had moved out. I don't really know kind of the details as far as when exactly my stepfather married my mother. I was probably 8 or so. I just know that I never saw my father again a couple of times immediately after that kind of period. But from 8 to about 12, I didn't see him at all. And then I saw him in court where I was legally adopted. I started off life as a Rosenberg, and then I was adopted by my stepfather and became a Zorn. And my dad had to sign some papers in court. And he asked me if that's what I wanted. And I said yes. I know later I kind of discovered, I went through, I wouldn't call it counseling. A friend of mine wanted to be a life coach. And so I said, sure, he needed some hours. And I spent a lot of time talking to him. And it really became more, like psychiatry. And I realized that I was then at the age of 40, that looking back, that 12-year-old didn't want my dad to sign the papers. He wanted my dad to fight for me, because of what I communicated. He just signed. He just thought he was doing the best thing for me, making it easy. And he signed. So anyway, I don't even remember the question.
That's so interesting, though. And then after age 12, how long was it till you saw him again?
I was in my 20s, 23, 22. I was, a beeper salesman at PageNet.
I remember.
There was a restaurant bar called Blarney Stone. I think it's a chain. And we, all of the salesmen for the beeper company would always have lunch there. And kind of another weird coincidence of my family is that my mother is a fraternal twin, and these twin girls married twin brothers. So my biological father's younger brother was married to my mother's sister. And I called my mother on her birthday, and she said, you should probably call your aunt and wish her a happy birthday too. And I did. And my grandmother was over there, and she, when I wished my aunt a happy birthday, my grandmother was in the background saying, "Hey, there's somebody here that wants to speak to you. There's somebody here that wants to speak to you." And it was that my biological father was visiting over there, and they thrust him on the phone, and we had an awkward conversation. And I heard in the background, "Ask him to lunch, ask him to lunch, ask him," and he did, and we went to lunch.
So that was, you were age 22?
Yeah, 22, 23, yeah, something like that.
Um, did you maintain that relationship? I forget.
So I really did not. It wasn't until my first child was born, my son, when I was 30, that there was really more of an opportunity for my biological father and I to have a relationship. It was just awkward between us, and I told him at that lunch, I don't need another father. My stepfather's my father, and if you want to be a friend, I can't have too many of those. But it was always awkward. But he was very interested in being a grandfather, and I didn't want to deny my children a grandfather, so I made it very easy for him. And he was a good grandfather, and we really got to know each other over the course of his relationship through them, my son and later my daughter.
Mm-hmm. Is he still living?
No, he passed away. Very. This is just a crazy coincidence. On July 4th of 2023, my biological father and my stepfather died on the very same day. I'm not able to pinpoint how many hours within each other, but I actually found out within about 5 minutes of each other.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I had to work on 2 eulogies in the same day.
Oh man.
It was very emotionally confusing for me. I pride myself on being a good writer, and I think
You do.
my stuff. I turn to those eulogies every now and again, just as a sample of my writing.
I'm sure they were great. So you're a kid on Long Island. My recollection is we haven't talked about it that much, but my recollection is you were a great football player and probably other sports. I think, did you play baseball too? I
Yeah,
forget.
I was baseball, football, but football was my true love.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some funny stories about both, but I don't know what you'd like to get
Sure.
into.
Go ahead. Whatever. I want to hear it.
So football. They say everybody has 15 minutes of fame. I'm counting this as part of my 15 minutes, by the way, this interview. But
High hopes.
in high school, the Clark Rams public school with a fancy private school name, Clark. We set the record for the most consecutive losses in Nassau County high school football history at 23 games. And I scored the winning touchdown in my senior year that broke the longest losing streak in Nassau County high school football history. I was a two-way starter, and on defense, we went down. We had scored an offense to go ahead in the fourth quarter. They were coming right back to win the game. We always blew it in the fourth quarter. I had an interception from the linebacker spot that sealed the game, and we went on to have a 2-game winning streak. My final 2 games of my senior year.
You went out on a high note.
Went out on a high note.
That's awesome. Well, in spite of that, like my recollection is that you were unbelievable runner. I mean, we played rugby together. You were super talented. You must have had no line support.
Yeah, I went all county despite not having an offensive line.
That's crazy.
I played weak side linebacker. I married my high school sweetheart, which I'm getting ahead of myself. But when I was just dating her and I was a senior in high school and I was over her house, her parents had a friend over and they asked, "Oh, what position do I play?" And I said, "I play tailback on offense and I play linebacker on defense." And he said, "How much do you weigh?" And I was 5'8", 165 pounds. And he said, "Oh, I'd run at the 165-pound linebacker," and I'd said, "You'd lose."
That
Anyway,
was who were you saying that to? Her father? Or
her father's friend that was over, who asked me
oh
about
man.
my football.
And I'm assuming you went out in the yard and showed him after that, right?
I would have
That would be
liked.
logical.
Held a grudge all this time.
Oh, is he still living?
No, my stepfather. I'm sorry, my father-in-law passed quite a while ago. I have no idea if his friend is alive or not, but
We got to find that guy.
he'd be pretty.
So you end up you're playing sports in high school. Do you have any funny baseball memories?
Well, my funniest baseball memory, I have two. We had a very good baseball team, and my stepfather was a very loud man. He was loud at all the football games. You could always hear him in the stands. I could hear him while I was playing. He would break my concentration. I would actually hear him from the field. Our baseball coach was a very serious guy, and he told me that if my stepfather continues to come to the game, he just knew him as my father, that I'm off the team.
Whoa.
And so I lied to my parents and I told them I quit baseball. And so I didn't get to be witnessed by my parents for my senior year of baseball. And I also lied to Friendlies, which I was a short order cook at Friendlies. And Friendlies, I had asked for a Thursday night off. We had a night game, and my manager wouldn't give me off. And so I lied and called in sick. And so my favorite baseball story is I made Newsday. They always had the box scores, the next day for the local high school games. And I made the box score for having scored drove in the winning run in that game. And my manager called me in, and I forgot all about having called in sick. And he said, "Hey, congratulations on your game Thursday night."
And you're fired?
Thanks. And he said, "Yeah, you're fired."
Oh, man.
No regrets. I had a face full of pimples from that job working as a short order cook, and they all cleared up,
And that baseball memory.
Yeah. Yep.
There's nothing like baseball. My favorite sports memory is Casey at the bat, bottom of the seventh, tie game, runners on first and third, 2 outs, pinch hitting. It's my favorite baseball memory.
Nice.
So you end up, you succeeded on the gridiron. You had a great time playing baseball. That's crazy about your stepdad. Today, I don't know. Like, how could you even say that? Like, he must have been really disruptive. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. No, I have, there was a letter I wrote to my mom that really, I'll just say there were two central characters. And what was happening as my stepfather and my father aged, and they were both in my life. My mom divorced my stepdad after 17 years. He had all sorts of drug addiction problems and Alcoholics Anonymous and that whole thing. He skipped one of the steps. He showed no remorse to anybody. But in any event, the thing that really just got her is I continued to maintain relationships with them, and that was starting to drive a wedge in our relationship, because she was kind of intimating that I was needy. And the one thing that I really hold on to in life is being competent, and challenging my competency at anything really just angers me immediately, and there's kind of no getting past that. And so as that continued to drive a wedge, it kind of led into a big blow up when my stepfather told me he was actually, on a premeditated basis, he was going to take his own life. Life just wasn't worth living anymore. He was Parkinson's and all these things. And I think that that's my own personal philosophy. That's a reasonable out. I don't consider that the same as having bipolar and or some kind of disorder, and taking your life when you just needed medication or something. But in any event, so he had asked if I would like to come down to North Carolina and see him one final time. And over dinner, I had shared my intention with my mother, and there was a big blow up. And so on my flight down to North Carolina, I wrote something that was very heartfelt to her. But the two central characters were my dad and my stepfather. And my stepfather, the character was personified as a rooster. And my biological father was personified as a sloth. And I don't know if my father, my biological father, was truly lazy, but that was the backstory I had always heard, and one of the reasons for the breakup of their marriage. And the rooster was my own personal story because he was loud and embarrassing all the time. I even remember, at my bar mitzvah, um, he got so drunk and high on cocaine that he just made a big spectacle of himself. And one of the things that there's a kind of a candle lighting ceremony. Um, he came up, he was called up, to light the candle with me and my mother in front of the whole, congregation. This is more like at the after party, which is, the real reason we all get bar mitzvah is the after party. In any event, this was the most embarrassing moment of my life. I now realize as a grown man that nobody even knew it happened. He laid a kiss on me in front of everybody, and he was so uncomfortable in his own skin that he actually French kissed me in front of the whole audience. And this was not a sexual thing. This was him just being a clown and him being uncomfortable in his own skin in front of all these people. He had never had to go and speak in front of a group. He was always, the class clown, as he described it in high school. And what I thought everybody knew, but nobody could tell, and kissing your son on the lips, is not a big deal, not in my house, and anyway, not to me. I don't routinely kiss my son on the lips and make him uncomfortable, but I've never put my tongue in his mouth. And so this is kind of the rooster of my story. But again, I find myself each time getting deeper than maybe your question asked and forgetting what the question was. So if you could kind of guide me back to where we started.
I think you were talking about, I forget the question too, but you ended up talking about the fact that your mom and stepdad got divorced and she resented the fact that you wanted to maintain a relationship with him. And what occurs to me is that your biological father left. He wasn't in your life. So you had this stepfather that she expects you to love while she's married to him. And then they got divorced. And all of a sudden you're not supposed to love him anymore. That seems illogical to me, or would be hard, I would think.
That's dead on. Yeah. Yeah. And, my mom, she was a product of an abusive home, actually taken away as a ward of the state. Her and her sister were physically abused by probably a bipolar mother. She died when I was only 1, so I never got to know her. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't have to forgive her for anything, that she's just gone, made it simpler. So, so my mom has some issues, always seemed to marry men that were no good for her. Just, I think, because she was needy and never really kind of understood, what a real relationship was. Always good to me, up until then I was on a pedestal.
You still are. So you decide, how did you decide when and where you were going to go to college?
That was an easy decision. So after 23 consecutive losses, I wanted to play for a good football team. I did realize that at 5'8", 165 pounds, and charitably a 4.7 40, that I was not going to play Division I. So I just looked up, like, who is the best Division III football program in the country, and that was Augustana. Augustana would have left a lot of academic merit on the table in terms of what school I was capable of getting into.
Mm.
And the second best school in the country, football Division III, was Union College. And that was actually a little bit of a stretch for me academically to get in. And I said,
Mm.
that's the one, went early decision, and luckily got in.
Oh, that's neat. So what happened in football?
So in football, went to football camp,
Mm.
and you go a couple of weeks early before school starts. And I was very low on the depth charts, and I got to learn all of the scout team's offensive plays as a running back, so our defense could have actual kind of real looks. And I was beaten to the point of I don't think I could have played, and I didn't get to learn the offensive playbook of our actual team. I would wake up with nightmares that everybody would get injured and I'd get put in and not know the plays because I didn't. and and then there was an incident with one of my close friends on the football team, which made me realize that maybe I don't really like these guys. And I
Mm.
quit. So the incident was in my freshman dorm. We had kind of a fun group, and there was a kid. I'll just leave out his name in case he ever hears this,
Mm.
but he was socially awkward, and certainly not um, able to defend himself. And me and one of my football buddies, who was not from my dorm, he came over and we were getting rowdy in the hallway. And this kid came out in the hallway and said, "Hey, could you keep it down?" And my football friend used this opportunity to get into the kid's face and like start a fight. And it was just so obvious that he could just literally kick this kid's ass. And I had to kind of break it up, and he embarrassed him. And it was just that uh, I believe in, like I hit to kill on the football field, you know,
Mm.
but I'm kind everywhere else.
Mm.
And there was just this testosterone, you know, that, and this, to the football team, and it was all across campus, and I just didn't want to be part of that. And
Mm.
uh, and maybe being fifth on the depth chart, yeah, going to be beaten up all season, led to a confluence of things.
Just a
Maybe that's
coincidence.
just a coincidence, but yeah. So I quit football, and
Mm.
then the following season I went out for rugby.
So rugby, I could be wrong, but I think rugby's where we first met. Am I?
Yes, you should remember it because I remember it well. When
Mm.
I showed up for rugby practice, there had been flyers put all around in all the dorms, with time, and it was in front of they call it Library Field, in front of what we call the Not Memorial. You know exactly what I
Mm.
mean.
Mhm.
And when I showed up there, I wasn't late, but there was already kind of a group of kids gathered around in a big circle that, kind of in my Bronx days meant there's a fight going on. They're all circled up. And I saw you wrestling with another young man. And after a couple of minutes,
Joe
you,
Perkins.
you pinned him and you
Oh,
got
I don't know.
I don't know. You won. Whoever you were wrestling with, you jumped up and you pounded your chest and said, "Who's next?" And you looked around,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
raised my hand. I said, "I'll wrestle you." And no shortage of confidence. You asked me at 18 years of age, I had 165 pounds. Who the toughest guy on the planet was? It was me. And
Wow. It's quite a
having
claim.
never wrestled, having no training or otherwise, having was
Hmm.
totally confident I was going to hold my own, and you pinned me pretty quickly.
Uh-oh. That's not fair, though.
But that's how we met.
Yeah, I do remember. You're a good sport. I'm glad we're still friends. Um, so you got involved in rugby, and at least for me, I was a cross country and track athlete, and eventually was uh, I was unsuitable for the sport. I would say that I was about to say the sport was unsuitable for me, but I was just a drunk, as you know. And the coach caught me at Dunkin' Donuts. His name was Russ Ebbets, and he was great. He had run at Villanova and ran like a 4:10 mile or something in college. And he caught me at Dunkin' Donuts one time at like midnight in Saratoga. And we had I think it was a Thursday night, and we had a meet on Saturday. And he's like, here, I'll buy the donuts. Come with me. And then I went with him, and he said, you're probably not a great fit for the team. I asked him like the next day, I was like, well, you were out at midnight or 2 a.m. too. He's like, well, I'm not running Saturday. But so then I ended up playing rugby, and like not many people know this, but I know you do. But rugby's a very cerebral game. Like if you play it according to the rules and the strategy, like it's a thinking person's game. And because of the pads, like I feel like it's less violent than football. I mean, football gives people a false sense of security, whereas in rugby, you just can't tackle easily with your head. And I mean, some people do, but it's rare.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's fair.
But I enjoyed obviously there was lots of beer drinking and stuff like that, but I think like the average person on that team, like think of the people like Chris Sheridan, didn't he write for Family Guy or some other famous, he's super famous, Rob Sharp, super famous private equity guy.
Yeah.
Dan Gilbert, another hedge fund or there was a lot of really intelligent people on that team, on those teams. Yeah, I should say.
And just good people that you want in your foxhole.
No doubt. And we were good. Yeah, like our teams were good. It was fun to play.
Our teams were awesome. It was fun.
So you any other Union College stories you want to talk about?
I remember a 4th of July party that you visited me with your brother Doug. I don't know if that's suitable for this podcast.
I don't know. Oh yeah, wrestling. Oh my gosh, that's
wrestling in the pool, or
oh my god,
we went out to the
Lilliputians.
And I must have cut off somebody, and you guys flipped them the bird, and they followed us into a parking lot. And we piled out of the car, and we were surrounded, and somehow through your bravado, they all backed down.
No, I remember I said, I feel like Gulliver.
Yes, they were.
And you were like, you laughed. You said Lilliputians.
Yeah, and then they knew they were being insulted. One of them threatened to get a gun out of his car. Mm-hmm. I was pretty hammered, and I said, "Why do you need a gun? There's like 16 of you. There's only 3 of us."
Right.
And then the biggest guy in the group, you told Doug to break him, and you went like this with your fingers. And the big guy talked his way out of the fight and got all the other people to back off. And then the punchline was, then we still wanted to go into the club, but the bouncer said we had to have collared shirts. And I remembered that in my trunk was all my dry cleaning. I hadn't taken it out, and I had a bunch of collared shirts. We all got dressed up in the parking lot, and they still wouldn't let us in because we were too drunk.
Yeah, good judgment.
And I was mad about them making me ruin my dry cleaning for no reason. And then we went back to the pool and kept my sister up, who lived home with my parents still till 2:00 in the morning when we went back wrestling.
Those were the days.
So I'm not sure if that's a Union College story, but it happened during those times.
It's a lot of mischief. So you got out of Union. Did you go directly to PageNet or do something else?
I had a couple of weeks at an advertising company. So I was an English lit major, and I wanted to put my degree to work. So I looked for any kind of job that might involve writing. And there was this company called Diener Hauser Bates, and they specialized in the movie industry. What they would do at that time, periodicals would, like Newsday or New York Times, or they would advertise what movies were playing, and they would have the schedules, and they would typically have some artwork. I remember the first piece of artwork I saw in my job, which was in the trafficking department, was with Sylvester Stallone as Rambo, with the what do you call it, a bolero? Basically the bullets across, that
Mm.
they wear as a, almost like a belt across his.
Hmm.
Well, anyway, my job was to measure the artwork to make sure it was the right size for the reservation we had made in the various periodicals, and then wait at night for the couriers to come pick up the art and deliver it to the various uh, printing companies and such. It took them about 5 minutes to train me. It took me about 5 minutes to get bored at the job. After 2 weeks of working there, I went into my supervisor and I asked, was there any reason they had hired a college grad for this position? Because a monkey could do it. And she told me, you have a lot to learn, young man, about paying your dues. You're fired.
Mm.
So that was my first job. Uh, that was a lucky firing because the advertising industry doesn't pay a whole lot. And I
Mm.
was still living with my parents and packing a lunch and commuting daily into Manhattan, so Long Island to Manhattan. And so then I looked for a job in sales so I could make more money. And I got a job at PageNet, which is a store you know well.
Mm.
My starting salary was $5,000 higher than I was making at the advertising agency, but it was plus commissions. And in
Mm.
my first year, I made $42,600.
Mm.
I remember we compared checks, and I had made more than you that year.
Mm.
And you told me, yes, but you have a job. I have a career. I'm not sure how you're going to get screwed. I just know that you don't own the means of production, and you're going to get screwed. And you need to start something, and you should come and work with me at Northwestern Mutual.
Mm.
And at the 1 year mark, at my anniversary, my sales manager Richie called me in and said, "Jeff, you're doing a great job. You've made quota every month this year. We just hired two new sales reps. These 6 zip codes in Manhattan that used to be yours, we're giving two of them to Andy and two of them to Joe. You're going to keep the best two, but we're raising your quota by 50%." And I said, "That's not fair, Richie." And he said, "Go cry in your own coffee. Uh, I got my own problems." And he pulled out a map of New York City that included Manhattan, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. He said, "This used to be my territory. They've just hired 4 new sales managers, and they just left me Manhattan, and they've raised my quota by 50%. So get out of my office." And I
Mm.
said, "Richie, you may have to take it, but I don't. Behind the scenes, you had been working on me
Mhm.
to start at Northwestern Mutual. So you have my 2 weeks notice." He stood up and shook my hand and said, "I don't need your 2 weeks notice. Go home." So I called you up and you said, "Hey, why don't you come up here and, you could mirror me and follow me." The problem was that your, office was too close to Union College, but there was a second wrestling story attached to this.
Oh boy, can you remind me?
Yes. So after not having seen you for the 4-day weekend, I was up there, to go and do things with you. I went to your fraternity party. Your house had a fraternity party each week, and I knew I'd find you there. And you were so pissed off at me, and we squared off to wrestle. And I was sober, and you were drunk, and I did a little bit better in front of your fraternity brothers than you were really comfortable with, because you didn't pin me right away. And so then you took your forearm and you put it to the back of my head, bashed my
Oh,
head against the floor a few times. And so
oh
when I
no,
started at Northwestern Mutual a week later,
with a
my
black eye.
my manager told me, "You probably shouldn't go see anybody just yet because he had a big old black eye." So
Classic advice from Bob Bogan, right?
yes, yes, but all good times and all forgiven. I think that
Thank you.
I think I
Man,
deserved it for having blown you off.
no, you have a good memory.
Yeah.
So you've succeeded beyond measure in your career. Um, how, how's it going now?
Well, I think that there's a saying that you can't outperform your own expectations, and one of the things that has been just so helpful to me in life, I abandoned, and that was, or maybe it just stopped resonating with me. But I think goals are kind of bullshit. That a goal is kind of a dream that, yeah, maybe it'll happen, but an expectation, if you're not nuts, your subconscious mind kind of gets its arms around an expectation. If you expect something to happen, you'll put in the work, you'll do whatever it takes to kind of make it happen. It just seems to magically fall into place, but you're working really hard to make sure it happens. And for 15 years, making forum, being part of that club really resonated with me. It was really important. And I kind of just found the expectation. And then COVID happened and I started making all sorts of excuses and I just, stopped being important to me.
Mm.
A lot of my mountaineering and, which you haven't asked me about yet, but I know you're going to get to, and making forum were very deeply tied together. It was really like a gift I would give to myself of having owned the experience where, okay, this year I want to summit something. This year I want to make forum. And it's so when I look back, I could have done the things that make me proud of me. It's really one of the things I talk to my kids about a lot when they're confused about anything. I just say, hey, it's not easy to figure out what's going to make you proud of you, but I can't answer your question until you figure that out. And once you figure that out, you'll already know the answer. And so where am I? I think that I am feeling a little bit uninspired where I'm looking to fail at a floor. I got to be above a certain floor so I avoid embarrassment. I just, yeah, can't let my production fall below 400,000 or whatever the stupid number is. Just I can pay my bills, no matter what. I'm ridiculously frugal, so if I never earn another nickel, I'd be okay. But I just, yeah, I'm feeling kind of uninspired in the business. I'm a little bit uninspired about my mountaineering as well. But I'll wait till we get to that to tell you why. And there's kind of just there's some kind of just frictions, and I know those are excuses. Everything is resistance. You taught me that. Pressfield taught me that. A book you had me read. But again, there's some cognitive dissonance in terms of kind of abilities and goals and expectations, which is kind of keeping me floundering and not knowing where to go. But I'm also not in a terrible place either. So.
So, what got you into hiking?
So, in my PageNet days, I met a guy, Jimmy Friedel, and I really feel badly that I lost touch with him. I think he might have passed. I've tried every which way to find him. And he was a beeper salesman, but he was actually an artist. Oil-based paint was his medium. And I think artists have a special way of seeing the world. They're very observant. And after I left PageNet, I started Northwestern Mutual. I continued to be friends with him. And I had just bought a home, and I was having him over my home for the very first time. And on the drive, it's in the middle of March. It's still kind of winter. There's no leaves on the trees. We come down a big hill, and on the left, there's a lake, and there's a whole bunch of sand where some kind of lake association, my neighbors had all, paid to bring in sand and create a beach. My realtor didn't know about it. They never showed me it. I didn't know about it. And I had never even noticed it. And as we drove together, he points out, he said, "Oh, is that a beach? What is that?" And I said, "I have no idea." And I've been to the house, half a dozen times without having noticed it. And what I realized at that moment was I grew up on Long Island. It was really flat land. Not only was it flat land, every house on my block and in my entire neighborhood was on a 50 by 100 plot. And the house was set at identical distance from the street. You literally couldn't see any other house from any other house. It was like in bowling, they call double wood. You can't see the pin behind the pin. I had never really trained my eye to see landscape. And it was kind of like the very first time I started noticing topography. And then I started just, kind of hiking on the weekends. And then my wife bought me a book called A Falcon's Guide to Hiking New York. And I started looking at, different trails. And then I noticed that I really liked the ones where you gained elevation. And there was a particular one, Breakneck Ridge, just outside of Cold Spring, where it was a hairy scramble, a rock scramble. Maybe even if you went off trail, you probably should have some rope. And it felt perfectly comfortable just going up that thing. And I just, wanted to get up higher and higher stuff. And so that's kind of was the genesis of it. And then when my kids got older, I forced them to do it with me, first in the backpack on my back. And then, my 5-year-old Justin, he did a 3-day hike, in the Appalachian Trail with me where there was a big revolt. And I still torture him with the story of I'm missing mama, which he was in the tent at night. He was
How old was he then?
He was 5, and we had a challenging agenda of 30 miles in 3 days with a 5-year-old.
That's pretty big.
We made it 15 before we had to hop off on a highway and find a payphone for mom. That was in the days pre-cell phone, and mom had to pick us up.
Wow.
But that was the start of it. Was Jimmy and kind of starting to pay attention to topography.
So you wanted to go bigger and bigger, higher and higher.
Bigger. Yeah.
So Breakneck Ridge led to. Did you do some of the high peaks in the Adirondacks, or what did you do next?
So did things like Mount Morrissey and those types of things, and always wanted to do a 14er. And then that gentleman that I had mentioned earlier that kind of wanted to be a life coach and kind of became a psychiatrist to me. He was doing kind of an earlier version of Zoom, which there was no video. It was just kind of dial in, and he had clients kind of all over the country that were, he was life coaching in a group session. We were actually kind of reading, Think and Grow Rich together, and then talking about it during these things. And one of the guys, Kyle, he lived in Colorado and in Boulder, and he invited me out. So I got to do my first 14er with Kyle, and that was a funny stories with him as well. But I don't know. We have to limit how many funny stories. In any event, we had a great time. We did a couple of 14ers, Grays, and another one called Tories, which were both non-technical peaks. I started to try to do some technical rock climbing as well, got some training, and discovered that I don't really like technical rock. My guides always wanted to challenge me until I fell, and I don't like, trusting the equipment to keep me alive. I would get to, 5.7s and 5.8s. And I don't know if you know what that is in terms of technical rock, but once you get to the 5.9s and the 5.10s, I would always fall. So it was always really just high altitude trekking up rock scrambles, which are really that you don't really need rope. They might put some rope in just for, safety on some, some things, but that's kind of, what I really enjoy.
Mm. So do you have a funny story about you and Kyle?
So Kyle, in addition to being part of the group, was going through a divorce, and that divorce, I have no idea where it was when I came out to meet him, but I can tell you that Kyle was very into dating again. And on my drive from the airport in Denver to Boulder, I called him to just remind him that I'm on my way. And he said, "Oh, shit." He forgot entirely that I was coming. And he was either out on a date or he had a woman over. And he said, "Hey, why don't I meet you later?" And I said, no problem. I can entertain myself. And so I just drove to Boulder, and I just went bar hopping. So in any event, I'm bar hopping from 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. About 1 o'clock in the morning, Kyle comes and meets me at the bar, and I'm pretty hammered, and I've never met Kyle or even seen him because we don't have the Zoom technology. I've only heard his voice. And in comes a guy in short shorts, cowboy boots, and a suede vest with no shirt underneath it. Uh, and I'm not particularly homophobic, but I felt very awkward with this guy coming in at 1 o'clock in the morning dressed like that to leave. And we had another drink at the bar, and I hopped on the back of his BMW motorcycle and wrapped my arms around him and drove to his apartment. So that's the funny Kyle story, just meeting him in that fashion. No other really funny stories. He was a lovely host. We had a great time climbing. Me with a terrible hangover, which is not the way you want to acclimate.
That's crazy.
All went well.
So at what point did you decide that you wanted to start doing like big stuff? Like I remember you always had this, and I suppose that all climbers maybe, or many do, like I want to climb Mount Everest, that kind of thing. At what point did you start thinking about that?
So it really was very, very early on. From the time I first thought about a 14er, I was just embarrassed to share the goal with anybody because I didn't have a resume. And so I just kind of thought about, okay, what kinds of things? And I was reading every kind of book on, survival stories. I just love those types of things, mountaineering survival stories, and or any kind of survival story I really like. So I decided to just start to build my resume. And the first thing, even before the 14er, was a mountain in Arizona. My first big peak was Mount Humphrey. You're probably familiar with it. It's a 12,600 foot peak in northern Arizona. And I had gone there with my stepbrother as part of this kind of ambition, that hasn't been shared with anybody, even before my 14er. He was meeting all of his fraternity brothers. He's a bunch of years younger than me. So I was about 30, and I was with all these 24-year-olds who were there not to climb Mount Humphrey, which I thought was going to happen, but they were really there just to go camping and get drunk. And we had a great time camping and getting drunk, but I started harassing them all to go climb Humphrey. And eventually, on one of our last days there, we started to climb Humphrey, but it started to snow, and there was always snow on the ground. And one by one, they started quitting. And I had really counted on them for knowing the route, for having done it before. And I hadn't done any true research. And I didn't really have any equipment, no crampons, no microspikes. Nobody had anything. We weren't even hiking with trekking poles, nothing. And so they all were being conservative, and one by one they quit until his last man was me and my stepbrother. And he said, I don't know the way. And so he quit too. And I was like, damn. And we went down. And so when I started making Forum, I figured, hey, from Scottsdale to northern Arizona is not that long of a drive. I'm going to go do Humphrey. And on my second Forum, I drove up. And what I didn't realize, I kind of left at 3 o'clock in the morning. I got up there at 5:30 in the morning. It was still dark. I couldn't find the trailhead in the dark. So I killed an hour or two waiting for the sun to rise. Finally, the sun rose. I found the trailhead. I was coming from sea level and trying to go to the 12,600 in a single day. That is a really tough feat. And I wound up being able to do it. But at the end, I was literally, I'm going to hike for 30 seconds. I'm going to rest for a minute. I'm going to hike for 30 seconds. It wasn't hands and knees crawling, but pounding, headache. I knocked it off. And then I still didn't realize that you need equipment, no trekking poles, no spikes, no nothing. And then just trying to get down was like a harrowing experience. Made it down safely. So Humphrey was first, then the 14ers in Colorado, but always with an idea of Everest. And then I said, okay, so what's the next thing? And the highest non-technical peak really is Kilimanjaro. And so I started training for Kilimanjaro. During the course of training for Kili, I started kind of thinking, hey, it'd really be nice to have my hiking buddy with me, who's then my 14-year-old son. I asked him if he wanted to go. At first, I had to have the conversation with mom. Is it okay if I ask him to go? He, of course, said yes. And so, him at age 14, we knocked off Kili together. Then 3 years later, my daughter, who's incredibly competitive with one person, her brother, said, "Hey, can I do Kili too?" And I said, "Hey, let's do something else. I'd love to go climb something with you." And I said, "I want to do Kili." So I went back and did Kili again. What was so amazing is that she had absolutely, all of us had doubt, right? She had no doubt that she could do Kili because her brother could do it, and she could do anything her brother could do.
So on the climb, there was no doubt. Once, did she have any doubt at all?
She was much more coachable. Justin, one of the things you'll learn when you go to Kili is you learn one word for sure, and that is pole. That's Swahili for slowly. And virtually anybody can get up to the top of Kilimanjaro if you go slowly enough. It's all about acclimation. And so Justin's style was to push as hard as he could, as long as he could, double over when he couldn't breathe anymore, catch his breath and do it again. And so he made it to the top, but he suffered.
Oh, okay.
Casey, she just chilled and just slowly, poly, she just ground her way to the top, no problems, and no doubts that she communicated.
That's awesome. So, what big ascents have you done subsequently?
So, we did Aconcagua next. I probably told you that story. That was my only failed summit. If you talk to real mountaineers and they tell you if you tell them you've never had a failed summit, they will all answer the same. Then you've never done anything, because everybody has a failed summit. I've been incredibly lucky with the weather, and truthfully, I've never done anything in the Himalayas, which is the real deal. The next big peak was Aconcagua, and that is, I knew you were going to ask, so I wrote it down. That's 22,800. My son, who was a standout collegiate cross-country athlete, he was suffering with a stress fracture during his senior year of college, and I had invited him to do Aconcagua with me, kind of as a college graduation present. And he continued not to let himself heal. He would just kind of miss practice, get well enough to just compete in his next meet. And the stress fracture continued to be chronic, throughout his cross-country season. And cross-country season ended, and there was only about 3 weeks to go between that and our Aconcagua trip. And he was a little bit of damaged goods, and there was a moment where I saw he got his boot wedged between a couple of boulders and really tweaked that leg right at where his stress fracture was, and his climb was over. And so it was a painful hike back down to base camp, and a very expensive helicopter ride out. And we got to spend a lot of father-son time in what is the capital of town there, Mendoza. Just had a great time, but we didn't get to climb Aconcagua. Only made it to 18,000. The next year I went back and did Aconcagua and got to summit. The year after that, I did Denali with Justin again. And we both summited. That was by far, it wasn't the hardest summit. Summit day on Aconcagua was harder, but Denali, the whole thing was just harder, much colder, much heavier. My biggest
meaning the pack is heavier, or
Yeah, on Denali, because you're so far, you're up in the Arctic Circle. You're so far from the equator. Even before you get to altitude, it's cold. So you've got to carry a lot of gear, over 100 pounds of gear. So you got about 50, almost 60 pounds on your back. You got a sled with over 50, 60 pounds on it that you're dragging, and you're dragging this up significant hills, and it gets steeper and steeper. So summit day, you get to leave everything at high camp, and you're not as high. It's only about a 20,000 foot peak, a little over 20,000. So not nearly as hard as summiting on Aconcagua, but you are much more beaten up to get there. And this is part of my pet peeve about the whole mountaineering culture, and kind of why I'm stuck, is that I don't believe in porters. I believe in being part of a team, and you have your gear and you have team gear, and we split up the team gear and we are all carrying, the only thing, that the guides are carrying that we're not carrying is some emergency equipment and such, so they are heavier, but they're not porters. And, so with porters, that's a game changer. It's a total game changer. And I don't believe in supplemental oxygen. And so it kind of makes any Himalayan 8,000 meter peak impossible for me at my age to accomplish without dying. When I really look at my abilities, and look at how I'm built, there's a book by a guy by the name of Ed Vistiers, called No Shortcuts to the Top. And he says it again and again and again throughout the book. Getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory. And what's amazing about the read is all of these people throughout the book that he knew or was even close friends with, there's very few of them alive by the end of the book. They've all died along the way because they haven't followed that very simple, precept.
Is he alive?
And he's alive. And he has summited Everest without supplemental oxygen. And he's one of my heroes. But the thing about how I am built, I say this to myself, and as I do all of my training and as my fear builds, as these these expeditions get closer and closer, I have these sleepless nights, which I use as a good excuse to wake up and work out again. I'll be out, down on my treadmill at 2:00 in the morning, run another 10K if I can't sleep, while I'm training for these things. But the only thing that makes me ultimately get over my fear is to give myself permission to fail. To say, okay, summiting is optional. Getting down back to my family is mandatory. But then if I really look at my experience on the mountain, that is entirely forgotten when I get there. When I am driving to a peak, I have nothing on my mind. I am totally in the moment. Breathe, grind, push, grind. I have been in situations where there was little margin for error getting down again, where there was nothing left of me, that I barely got down off of Denali. I barely got down off of Aconcagua, where, like I was even cheating on Denali, where like I was at the back of the line, where, now these sleds that you have, you're going to hold them so the sled, you're all roped up together, doesn't knock your teammate off his feet, right? And I could barely hold it anymore. And so unbeknownst to my guide, who was at the very front of the line, and I'm in the rear, and my son and one other person is in the middle, I actually got down a steep path. I dropped down onto a self-arrest position where I was literally leaning on my ice axe, sliding down a very steep thing, just while I rested, going down, because I couldn't hold the sled anymore. It was the only way I could think not to have my whole team taken down.
Gosh.
So, I was like,
terrifying.
I don't think I've earned the right to do anything higher without supplemental oxygen. And so that's where I am today, is kind of saying, hey, do I want to go and risk my life and have porters just to have something on the resume, where, I've been in situations on Denali where somebody I was roped to got sent down, who had just done Everest successfully a couple of, months earlier, but couldn't get up Denali because there's no porters and there's no supplemental oxygen. So I kind of, but Also, there's this voice in me. Yeah, that's an excuse. It's an excuse. I'm 6 years older, than my last big summit. You know, 2019, was the last big summit.
Mm.
I know that every time I run slower.
Hmm.
I do everything slower.
Yeah.
So
Only you can say.
only I can say. I kind of go there that if I were to go on the mountain, the expectation would be if I summited a big peak without supplemental oxygen, like a 25,000 foot mountain, I'd die. That's the expectation. So I've chosen not to.
I mean, statistically, it's problematic.
Yeah, no doubt.
Potentially problematic. I suppose
Yeah,
there are
and
no
that's the big lines
absolutes.
that you see on Everest, where people who otherwise would have made it had they not had to wait an hour and a half in the death zone.
Hmm.
Just sitting on a line waiting. Which is crazy.
Yeah. My opinion's irrelevant, but for me, I don't know. Like, there's so many things you can do to test yourself that don't involve dying, right?
Yeah, and also a lot of the appeal, and I think that if you put me up on a couch, I've never had a professional psychiatrist, only my life
Mm.
who I haven't
Does
seen.
this count?
This is helpful. The I think the kind of the abandonment issues I have with my father, stepfather, really make these climbs with my kids, just an incredible bonding opportunity. And so one of my most recent expeditions was a 60th birthday present. It was just a couple of months ago, and September. My daughter, who's now 27, my son, who's 30, they both took time off from work, and we hiked from Banff, Canada, to Lake Louise. Camped out for 5 days, 4 nights, 5 days. Did about 70 miles through the Canadian Rockies. No big peaks, just going from 5,000 to 7,000 through the valleys. My toenails are still falling off from it. And it was great suffering. It was just great suffering with them. And my daughter is just an incredible organizer. She did the entire Appalachian Trail on her own without anybody. Organized the whole thing. Did it in 4.5 months. Organized this whole trip.
Mm.
And it was just, I think, such a blessing to have that week just one on one with my kids again. And one of the things that I always try to sign up for something, because it's a slippery slope for me. If I don't have something to train for, I will let myself get fat. I've seen me do it. So I had a winter ascent of Mount Washington with my son, and my daughter has never done that. So on January 31st of 2026, we are doing a winter ascent of Mount Washington together. So looking forward to that.
That's big.
We've done Mount Rainier together, my son and I. I did it with my daughter as well. All good
That's,
stuff.
Mount Washington it's no joke in the winter.
Yeah, that'll be. I think when I did it with my son, it was had to be 15 years ago. So I was a stud at 45. Now I'm 60. It'll definitely be a challenge.
I mean, it's always a challenge, and then you have the unpredictability of the weather and the wind. Or wind is part of weather, but if you get 70-mile-an-hour winds on your way up, it's in the
Yeah.
middle of winter. It's I don't know. I've heard a lot of stories about it.
When my son and I did it, we did it with a professional guide, and above the tree line, it was 87-mile-an-hour winds, minus 30 below wind chill. We were geared up for it, but literally there were ropes, and we had to crawl and from boulder to boulder to make the summit. And just I
That's
asked my
no
daughter,
joke.
like, she's like, yeah, she was like, yeah, she's just all over it.
Jeepers. Well, is there anything you might like to say or ask me before we wrap up?
Um, the only thing I want to express is how much gratitude I have for our relationship and for you and the leadership you showed in not only kind of, giving me the guidance to come into a career that helped me not only to provide for my family, but to create intergenerational wealth that I never even aspired to. Having a vision that was larger than my own, and then just leading and doing it in such a big way that I could see how much was possible. You know,
Mm.
doing a fraction of what you've done for your family has been, beyond my wildest aspirations for my own in terms of, the lifestyle I've been able to create. And I'm so grateful to you for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
we learn from each other. But my pleasure and thank you. And I feel the same way. But more than anything, like earning a lot of money and being successful and the good feeling that has given me more than anything, I learned from you and others and my career just to be present in the moment. I say it over and over and over, but just like what is my work right now? What do I want to do? Commit to me and follow through with that commitment to me. Because I feel like once I get my basic needs met, I get distracted, right?
mhm.
I just feel like I know I did it, got a little money, bought a car I didn't need, bought a pool table, just wasted lots of money and things until I realized that I'm really super glad that I've succeeded in my career. But more than anything, I don't need all that stuff to be happy.
Yeah.
I tell people I'm happy in my yard now. Like you have a nice yard, you know what
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. No, I'm happy
Um,
splitting wood. I love a cold day where we just get split wood and throw it in a pile. It's good work.
Agreed. And it's funny. Like everyone's always like, you know, you got snow up there yet? What's the weather like? And I'm like, I don't talk about the weather.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't care less if it's 20 or 40. It doesn't matter to me. The only thing I
Just
don't like
dressed
is
it
the
differently.
mess
That's
of
all.
snow.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I just dressed differently. That's all. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I almost prefer 20. 20
Yeah.
with nice gloves and a sweatshirt or a sweater. I can walk all day, you know? I mean, I ride my bike in 10 degrees. Like, it doesn't bother me as long as I'm dressed properly. And I almost like it better when it's colder. It's like a crisper feel. It's like, I love it. Um, but my last question, and if you've listened, you know I'm in the habit of asking this. Do you know what the most important punctuation is in the English language? It was a Pete Ryder question.
I would guess a period, but no, I don't.
You can't guess it. It's the hyphen.
Oh,
Do you remember why?
yes, I do. It's
So
what you
it's
do with it before on your tombstone.
yes. So if we were talking to your great great grandkids, who presumably you will never know, but who knows? But if they never knew you, what would you want them to know about you?
I stayed.
You stayed. I like it.
Yeah, I stayed. I married my
Simple, but
sweet sweetheart. I'm going to be, a grandfather, hopefully, and it's going to be so simple for my kids. They're going to have one family, for their whole
mm.
lives. It's going to be, me and Trudy. I
Mm.
stayed. Even my dog can count on it. I stayed.
That's perfect. Well, I too value our friendship. It's been, I don't take it for granted. Definitely don't spend enough time together, but I feel like there's so much trust there that when we do get together, it's just like we're right back to our early 20s. And Nothing has changed.
When's the next Ironman for you?
It's not scheduled. I did one October 19th, so a little over a month ago. So I'm thinking Sacramento again in the fall of 2026, but I have not committed. I probably should just put it on the calendar and try to get someone to go with me.
Very impressive.
So this year, Box came, and my friend Carl and his wife Maria, and John Grogan actually came.
Oh, nice.
From, formerly, he's retired now, but it was a great group. I was really grateful that they came, and we had a lot of fun. But if you're interested, I'll let you know if I sign up, and maybe you can join me. Not that you want to do it, but that you might.
How far is Sacramento from LA?
Far. You'd want to. I mean, you would fly. It's 1,000 miles.
My son is out in LA, so I'll make it a trip and go see him too.
Well, it's an easy direct flight. It's a 2-hour flight.
Yeah.
But
nice.
But thank you for a lifetime of friendship, and thank you for doing this. And I will see you soon.
Thanks for having me, Pat. Love you, buddy.
Got it. Love you too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
If you enjoy the most fascinating podcast in the world, please follow on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and follow on Apple Podcast.